Okay, so we're at the top of the hour. We have a lot of information to cover in this very short webinar. There may be a chance that we potentially may run over a little bit if there are some questions at the end. We are recording this presentation, so if you signed up for this webinar, you will receive the link to the recording probably later this week. This being said, let's dive into this presentation. GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, is the new SEO. Daniel and I will talk about how you need to adapt your digital marketing strategy for AI-powered search, because this is how we discover content, products, and services these days. And I think we have a pretty good methodology that actually allows us to show up in these large language models and also in traditional search. So my name is Chris. I'm originally from Switzerland. I've been doing SEO before Google was called Google. I got into it at the very beginning. I am actually so thrilled that things are finally changing with AI. So it's very interesting for me again. I wake up every morning excited what happened, and then I read for about 2 hours to see what happened in AI and SEO. So I'm a bit of a geek and nerd, and I speak globally. Next speaking gig internationally is in Berlin, Germany, at Gala in Berlin. So if you're there, it'd be great to see you in person. I'm also a brand ambassador for a SEO tool called SE Ranking. All right, my claim to fame, if you do a search, I think globally for the search term international AI SEO expert, you should see my name all over the place there. This doesn't happen just by accident, right? I think I earned that result in the SERPs there. I'm really passionate about this stuff, and I hope you're going to have a great experience here today and that you're going to learn a few things about AI SEO. All right, enough about me. Daniel, who are you?
Yeah, very quick introduction. I'm originally from Brazil, and before joining forces with Chris, I used to run a website design agency for about 20 years. So a lot of what I bring to the table is the website side of things and how it affects and how it works and how it helps. But usually, essentially, what I do today is I am the integrator. Chris is the visionary. He's always out there looking at where is this industry going and how and what do we need to do as an agency to stay ahead. And my job is to make sure that we integrate and implement processes to make sure that we are doing actively implementing this stuff for our clients. And one of the really exciting and interesting parts of this job nowadays is that things are moving so fast that there isn't a process or a specific thing that we do today that we're going to do it again in a month from now, right? It's an ever evolving landscape. And with that, it's an ever evolving approach on how to best make usage of, our time and efforts and resources to make sure that we're getting the best results from everything that we're doing. So I'm really excited about presenting some of this stuff today.
Awesome. And then I just saw we have somebody from Glasgow, Super Liza 66. Hey, I was there last week. We actually had fantastic weather. Looks like it's rainy and snowy there right now. So everybody welcome to this presentation. I think we have people from all over the world here. All right. So Daniel, we have actually I think we have made the transition from being a traditional SEO agency. We're now, I would say, even primarily an AI agency. We're about to launch our SaaS product. You're going to talk about that here in a second. We had a meeting yesterday with our AI department. So things are happening very fast, but we've made that switch from SEO to we're now an AI agency that happens to be really good at content marketing, GEO, and SEO. We're about to launch Micro SEO, We're going to retire BSM Copilot. Daniel will talk about that. And then we developed a proprietary methodology called Micro SEO. We'll tell you more about that later on in this presentation. But this basically allows us to achieve the results that we're able to achieve for our clients and ourselves. So I'm a business owner. Daniel and I are business owners. We care about leads and sales, right? You can have the best product service. You can be the best company out there. If you are not visible online, you're going to have problems, right? Unless you get leads and sales, you're not going to stay in business. It's getting really competitive out there to get people to your website, to your online entities. This is what we're going to talk about, right? Unless you're getting leads and sales through organic search and other digital marketing strategies, you're going to have a really hard time. In this webinar, we're going to talk about how to use AI for SEO to implement a generative engine optimization strategy. All right. Um, Had a really good call with a new client yesterday. They actually just sent us an email. They're wanting to start with us. And one of the questions is always, hey, how fast are we going to see results with SEO? Here's your answer. Daniel, I think we took on Primus Garage Doors back in June,
That's
right?
correct.
You
Yep.
want to briefly talk about how long it takes realistically to see results?
Yeah, and then again, the different cases, different websites, different situations will have different results. But a lot of times what we see is very similar to what we're looking at on the screen here, right? When we start working, we're really in the beginning doing some foundational work, creating a good strategy, making sure that we're kind of, doing all of the foundational things first. And then as we start really creating content and elevating that EEAT, that's when we see both the clicks and the impressions going up. So what we're looking at here is a pretty common trend for a lot of our clients. Some of them will take longer depending on what the foundation looks like, and some actually see the increase a little bit sooner. But it's hard to promise results. But what we know is the work that we're going to talk about today does produce results, right? But it's really up to Google to dictate how fast they're going to be able to see an increase in traffic.
Yeah, and keep in mind, every website is a little bit different. So it depends. That's my favorite answer. With the Primos garage doors, they had absolutely no SEO in place. So it was nice for us to be able to show them results relatively fast. Year over year, as of right now, we've been able to increase their organic visibility by about 500%. Daniel, did this also translate into leads and sales for them?
Tremendously, right? And one of the things that we worked with them as well is because they started having too many leads. So part of what we did with them is start working on qualifying leads, right? Through the funnels on the website and forms and so forth. So um, they couldn't be happier.
Cool. And obviously, can we promise this? Absolutely not. But this is what we're aiming for with this methodology. All right. Quick word about leads. Leads are very expensive in terms of prices attached to a lead. From, LinkedIn ads can be pretty costly to traditional Google ads, pay-per-click, paid social, a little bit less, but usually the leads are not that amazing. Email marketing, if you have a big list, that's obviously a great source to generate leads. But then hands down, organic is the least expensive and most effective way to generate leads and customers. Again, it takes a little bit of time, but it's the gift that keeps on giving once you're up there in the rankings and once you start to show up in these large language models. Then Google is not gonna go away anytime soon. So we're primarily still optimizing for Google, but obviously we also do things that we're gonna talk about that will get us into these AI search engines or large language models. but we primarily optimize for Google with about 20% targeting strategies for large language models. This is what we're going to talk about here in this webinar. All right, this is the sad reality, right? The search engine giant is keeping more and more potential website visitors on their website. We are living in the zero-click reality. Not only is it, pretty time consuming to optimize your website for search, and then now Google serves these AI overviews in nearly, 50, 60% of all times. So, with the methodology that we developed, we're trying to get more of those people actually to the website. But this is the reality that we're living in. And I think it's going to get worse and worse, where websites are going to get less and less traffic, but the traffic is going to be more qualified. All right. If you want to learn more about AI, SEO, and generative engine optimization, I am moderating an online summit on April 1st. Right below there is the link. I think John is putting the link to all the things that we're mentioning here into the chat box. I think we're near capacity, so make sure to sign up. It's a 2 hour long online event, again, complimentary, where I was able to invite some of the top experts in the industry to talk about things that matter, that will actually get you results. So we're super excited to be hosting this online summit on April 1st. Please join us if you can. All right, Daniel, the way we search for information is changing, right? Not too long ago, pre November 22, we primarily used Google. Then ChatGPT launched, right? And then all of a sudden, people are now using these large language models to search for information. But now, LinkedIn is a search engine, Instagram, etc., etc. All these platforms are popping up. We got 5 kids, right? A lot of them are using TikTok as their primary search engine, right? So guess what? You gotta be in those platforms where your target audiences are searching for information. This is what this methodology is doing. Daniel will do a very thorough walkthrough of the entire methodology, but you got to be in the places with the right information where your target audience is hanging out. Then also Daniel will be talking more about, who is now searching for information. As you are probably aware, many of the large language models are now launching AI agents that you can deploy to do things on your behalf. In the not so distant future, I guarantee you most people, they will probably reduce their own searching by about 80%, where we simply deploy AI agents to do, the manual searching on our behalf. So there's a lot of things that you can do right now to your website to make sure that you are the preferred source for when an agent is looking for information on the internet. This is what we're going to discuss in this webinar. All right, here are the common large language models or AI search engines that most people use. Obviously, we're using all of them here at BSM. Um, our preferred tool for content creation, hands down, is Claude. I just used Google Gemini in the process of buying a house. So I built an AI realtor agent because I didn't want to pay for an agent, and it saved me a lot of money. That thing did an incredible job. So Gemini was the right model for that, right? So depending on what you are doing out there, my recommendation is like check out all of these language models. They have different strengths and weaknesses, so you got to find the one that works best for you. Daniel will talk about how we primarily use Claude by Anthropic these days. Then, very briefly here, you will get access to these slides. So I trust you can read. So I'm not gonna read all the stuff here, but I want to share that more and more of the leads that we're getting, they're actually derived from large language models. We get a lot of leads from Claude, ChatGPT. Yesterday, I think was Perplexity. This is exactly what our methodology aims to do, right? We want to be found as a trusted resource in these large language models. And I predict that we're going to get more and more leads and sales through large language models because more of us are going to use these tools more often. And that's just the reality that we're living in. As you can see here, the green line there, that's traditional Google organic search traffic. Obviously, we're investing a lot of time, resources into getting cited in AI search traffic. The purple line there that you see is going up. This correlates with the fact that we're getting more and more leads through large language models. By the way, this is a tool called SE Ranking. I teach part of a master's degree for a university in Europe, and SE Ranking is giving my students free access to the tool. So I like to promote them. Just whip out your phone, scan that QR code there, or at the bottom, there's the trial link, no credit card required. It's a great tool. We don't make money. I just like to promote them because they give us free access to their tool. All right. As mentioned earlier, 80% of all the things that we still do for us and our clients are very traditional SEO tactics that can be, keyword research, keyword mapping across all of your pages, meta tags optimization, just like the very basic stuff, tech audit, tech fixes, etc., etc. But then 20%, that's now what we do as part of our GEO strategy. Again, Daniel will dive deeper here. So definitely pay attention because the 20% makes the difference. Okay. A lot of agencies out there, they still only do the 80%. So if you work with an agency, a traditional SEO agency, make sure to, get on the phone and ask them, hey, are you guys doing this and this that I saw in this webinar? Obviously, you're also welcome to reach out if you'd like to learn more about us. But this is really important. You got to update your methodology to get into these large language models. So, very briefly, let's take a step back to the basics. Something that, in my opinion, will probably not change for the foreseeable future. You need to make sure that your website is crawlable. Okay, we're going to talk more about that, but unless your website is crawlable and discoverable by these bots out there, not just the Google bot, but also the, ChatGPT bot, the Claude bot, etc., etc., your content will not get indexed in their databases. And by the way, these large language models, they usually have a cutoff date where they're crawling the internet, and then they're like, okay, hard stop. Now we're going to index that content of what we found in our databases around the world. If it meets our criteria, only then will you have a chance to actually be cited and ranked in those search engines. And then obviously, there's a lot more, to this madness here. You got to do the right things in terms of posting high quality content, which we'll talk about in a second. But if you meet those criteria, you do have a good chance to actually get ranked in the traditional links, in AI overviews, in ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, etc. So this is the foundation of search, a great tool to make sure that your website is actually crawlable, indexable, and getting ranked is Google Search Console. If you're not familiar with that tool, that's one of these things that I would actually write down. Google Search Console, it's a free tool by Google. You need to set that up for your website. We often actually set that up for our new customers. It's an absolutely no-brainer to get your stuff indexed and ranked in search. All right. Two critically important ranking factors as it pertains to ranking in AI search in and also in Google is the domain trust or page rank of your website, and then also the EEAT score of the person associated with the content being published on the website. I'll dive a little bit deeper here. If you're older like me, you may still remember the term page rank. That's a ranking signal that Google created way back when they launched, right? Back in the days, it was basically backlinks was the only ranking signal in Google's algorithm. It is still a very important ranking signal to get high quality backlinks from the right kind of websites to your website, but it's not the only thing, right? I often speak with potential customers and then like, oh, we need backlinks. I'm like, well, not really. There's like 1,000 other things that we need to do, but it's still important. Okay. With SE ranking, you're actually able to see what the page rank, or as they call it, domain trust is of your website. The higher, the better. Again, this is a third party tool, so it's not the official page rank score that we used to get from Google, but it's a good indication of how strong your website is. So pay attention to that. Again, the higher the domain trust of your website, the better. And that's achieved over time through when I do a speaking engagement like Gala Berlin, we do a press release, right? So that the world out there knows about, Chris Raulf. He's the real deal. He talks all over the world and he's associated with this company, Boulder SEO Marketing. So that's how you boost page rank and domain trust. So critically important. And then what really, really, really makes the difference, Google and these are other AI search engines, they see you and anything related to you as an entity. Okay, so in their eyes, I'm actually an entity. And to boost my entity score, I have to follow something that's called EEAT. Daniel, I think I need a quick break here from talking. Do you want to briefly talk about the concept of what is EEAT and why is it so important?
Yeah, for sure. So EEAT, one of the big things that we're always focusing on building and increasing for our customers, expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, right? What this really means is, experience and expertise is like, how long has this person been doing what they're doing? And what kind of expertise do they bring to the table, right? Can we trust this person to be putting content on the internet that's trustworthy, right? That is one thing that we need to prove and build to Google and other AI agents, because at the end of the day, Google and AI agents, what do they want to do? They want to present to you the best information out there, right? And one of the ways to do that is to make sure that that content is being created by somebody who has a really high EEAT. It's almost like if you look at a credit score, right? If a person has a high credit score, there's a lot of trust that's given to that person. The EEAT is almost that way. It's built over time by not only creating great quality content that is net new on the internet, but also by being present in other places as an expert, as a speaker, as someone who people look up to and look after, right? That is essentially what the EEAT is, and it's actually one of the biggest things that we focus on building now, and we do that in a lot of different ways, and we could talk about that later. But yeah, that's a little bit on what the EEAT is and why it's so important.
Yeah, so you don't need to be an AI wizard, right? If you are capable of boosting your visibility for yourself in, in online, that is such a important thing. As Daniel mentioned, it's similar to the credit score. Luckily, I have very, very good credit. So when I bought this house, I got the best interest rate. It would have cost me a lot more money if I didn't have that credit score. It's exactly the same thing with the EEAT score. And I'm going to show you examples of how quick the content that I publish on our website will rank. Oftentimes, I'm able to get a piece of content to rank on page one, I kid you not, within 24 to 48 hours. So this is extremely important. All right. One tool that I can highly, highly recommend is called featured.com. And we have the founder of featured.com speak at the April 1st online summit. This is basically a platform where publications look for experts to share their insights. So my team is monitoring applicable questions where I can provide answers. We use virtual Chris. I'm going to show you what that is. So I just get a notification when I was published again in a online publication. They will include my name, my title, a link to my LinkedIn profile, and to our website. So this tool, if you do nothing else, I would do featured.com. Again, if you want to learn more about Featured, make sure to attend the online summit. All right. Is your website ready for AI agents? What we spoke about earlier. Daniel will share really, really, really good information that you can actually implement. If you need help with this, you're welcome to reach out. Daniel, that being said, what's going on with AI agents?
Yeah, and I think this is the time of the presentation where I would say put your seatbelts on, because this is one of those big, big changes that is happening right now. And this is probably one of those big changes that the few businesses and companies that take advantage of this are going to have a huge advantage in the market moving forward, right? There's something that's very big, and it's shifting how people find and buy from businesses online. And most of the businesses do not know about this yet, right? So AI agents are no longer just answering questions. They're searching, comparing, booking appointments, and they're completing purchases on behalf of users. And this is happening right now. A perfect example is here in the United States. I don't know if you've heard, but there's Alexa Pro has commercials all over the place now. And the big thing about Alexa Pro is that you can ask Alexa to say, Alexa, please find me an Italian restaurant in my area and make a reservation for 3 people between 6 and 8 o'clock. That is something that is happening right now. And what is this? This is exactly what I'm going to talk about. How do you position your website and your business to be in the front of the line when these agents are doing these things, right? Just a couple numbers to put all of this into context, right? AI referred traffic to retail sites jumped 805% year over year on Black Friday 2025. Second thing, 1 in 5 Cyber Week orders involved an AI agent. So there's 3 protocols that are being built together by Google, Microsoft, Shopify, and Anthropic that are really changing the way that agents interact with websites. And today I'm going to walk through all 3 of these for you so you can actually understand what they do. So next screen, Chris, please. Think about this, and I'm going to use an analogy to make it a little bit easier to understand. Think about that we're talking about a shopping district, very similar to that photo that Chris showed in the beginning. A to A is the street. A to A stands for agent to agent protocol. In simple terms, A to A is how an AI agent finds another AI agent to talk to. Each agent essentially publishes a little something called an agent card, and basically a business card that says, hey, this is who I am and this is what I can do. So when someone asks their AI assistant to find a plumber, the assistant doesn't go into Google and type, find a plumber near me, like similar to what you would do. What it does is it talks directly to other agents. They exchange information, compare options, and then they make recommendations, all without a single click of a search result. And this is why this is important. You don't install A to A. This is one of those things that you don't necessarily have to do anything on your website. A to A is an infrastructure between agents, but it's the reason that you need to care about the 2 other ones that I'm going to talk about. Because if agents are now the primary searching, your job is to be the #1 most trusted answer that they surface, right? And that's when we go back to the foundation, the fundamentals. It means that you need to have schema markup. You need to have really good EEAT, structured data, and the content needs to be optimized in a way, not only for how humans are searching, but how agents are asking questions, right? And this takes us to the second thing. That's the important one, which is the next slide, Chris, please. The web MCP, in the context of the shopping, is your storefront. Web MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge, they built this together. And when those 2 collaborators stand side by side to build something, you know that this is going to be something big and something that's going to be around. Here's what it solves. Right now, when an AI agent visits your website, it does everything the hard way, like we do, right? It crawls your pages, it guesses where the navigation is, it tries to figure out what you offer, what is your unique selling proposition, and it might even miss your booking system completely because it might be 2 or 3 clicks away, in some other page. What MCP fixes is exactly that. It gives the agent a structured map of what your site does and what actions it can take. The site has a booking form. Here's a request quote. Here are the services available. The agent, as soon as it gets to the website, doesn't need to guess. It knows exactly what it does and how to interact with it. So let's use the plumber example. Let's say that you're a plumber and there's 10 plumbers in your area. An AI agent needs to book an emergency repair. 9 of these plumbers have a really good human website focus, right? It's beautiful, but the agent can't really interact with them in a structured way. But 1 of these plumbers, they have web MCP set up. The agent immediately finds that booking endpoint, fills out the request, and schedules the job. That plumber is going to win. Not because they have better rankings or because they have a better looking website. It's because their door was open and specifically to connect with these AI agents. So how do you actually do this? Well, implementing MCP on the website is not very hard. It's snippets of little bits of code that you put in specific areas that will really dictate, and create these portals for MCPs for the agents to connect with. Again, this is where the opportunity to be first to market really wins. If you're one of your competitors that's really integrating MCP into your website, when these agents are looking for someone like you, they're going to prioritize websites that have these MCP integrations. Now, the last one, Chris, if you can move to the next slide. This is another big one. UCP. And again, using the analogy of the shopping store, UCP is the cash register. UCP stands for Universal Commerce Protocol. Again, this was put together by Google and Shopify. They did this together and they launched it in January of this year. This was presented on stage by nobody other than Sundar Pichai. The coalition behind this is massive, right? Everyone from Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Target, Walmart, Best Buy, Home Depot, and the list goes on. They're all using this already. But what does it do exactly? Well, UCP creates a standard way for AI agents to discover products, manage the carts, check out, process payments, track orders, handle returns, all of that stuff that humans do, but all programmatically. The agent doesn't have to browse the website like a human, right? Again, if you're asking these agents to go on a website and have to look at every page and understand what's there, that's a lot of tokens that they don't want to use. By having UCP in there, you create a direct connection so the agent can immediately do all of these transactions on the back end. So if your website has UCP in there and other websites don't, who do you think the agents are going to want to work with? Right? The bottom line is that for any business selling products, the data quality is now the main revenue driver. Agents don't see your beautiful designs or the brand story and so forth. What the agents are really looking for is the structured data, the price availability, the shipping time, the return policy, all of that stuff. So here's the full picture, right? A2A is the street. It's the reason agents are out there in the first place, getting smarter, coordinating. Web MCP is your storefront. It tells the agents what you do and how to engage with the store. And then the UCP is your cash register. It lets them complete the sale. Most businesses right now do not have a sign on their door, right? The door is locked. And the idea is this is the opportunity that if you as a business implement these things as of now, you're going to be way ahead of the curve. So in retrospect, what we're doing, and this is all new to us as well as an agency, right? This is stuff that's happening now, today. So one of the things that we're doing with all of our clients is we're doing an audit to make sure none of our clients do have any of these things because this is brand new. We're implementing UCPs, MCPs, making sure that all of these websites are really, really optimized to be ready for A to A interactions. And every new client that's coming in now, well, before what we used to do is a tech audit, right? Your traditional SEO tech audit. That's 50% of what we do now. Now, 50%, the other 50% of this initial audit that we do is how well is the website prepared to be positioned for A to A interaction? So does it have all of these things in them? And if they don't, which I would say 99.9% of websites today don't, the first thing that we're doing as part of the onboarding is really integrating these elements in there to make sure that you're positioning yourself for success once these A to A interactions that are happening today become more and more common. So that's a little bit on what's happening and why this is so important and why this is the time to really jump on this and make sure that you get this implemented on your website, because it'll give you a huge advantage.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. And by the way, if you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, we publish educational content weekly. Please smash that subscribe button. We always publish high quality content, hopefully. All right, let's quickly talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, AI generated content. Okay. When ChatGPT launched, a lot of people created a lot of low quality content, put it up on the internet, and then Google freaked out because they don't want to pay for this low quality content to be stored in their server farms. So they had to update their algorithm, de-index a lot of content. So now all of the search engines, or most of them have improved their algorithms because they don't want to pay to store these bits and bytes in server farms around the world. However, AI generated content, if done the right way, will actually rank really well. So Google stance on AI generated content is right there, and below is the link that I recommend you read. We're gonna walk through the process of creating mostly AI generated content, and I'll show you how it's ranking. All right, here is proof. Guess what? If you do a search for e-commerce SEO case study, bang, right at the top, 100% AI generated content. Also, Grand Junction SEO. We opened in a new office down south here in Colorado. Location page, AI generated content. SEO agency in Colorado. The only thing that's ranking before us is a directory. That page, again, 100% AI generated content. The SEO price guide, 100% AI generated content. That thing ranks for many, many, many high search volume, high intent keywords. It gets us a lot of leads. So, uh, about Daniel, remember, was it like 2 years ago or something
Mm-hmm.
like that? I woke up
Yep.
in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh my God, we need to do something. Then I spent about 6 days prompt engineering and I took a long, long document to Daniel and I said, hey, build me a tool, build me an AI SEO tool that does this, that basically allows us to generate AI generated content. Daniel will walk through what we're about to launch, version 3 of our methodology. But yeah, I had this awakening, and then I just spent a lot of time doing what I had to do. And then I also had another wake up call where I realized that, hey, I talk to people all day long, and we transcribe the calls using Google Meet. I'm like, why don't I turn transcripts into content? I have really interesting conversations all day long. So that's what I did. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go over the entire methodology. Here's an example where I spoke with a property management company and we signed them on later, and I turned that conversation into a blog post right there. Again, 100% AI generated content. So I highly recommend that you watch this video. I spoke at a DigiMarcon conference. And this thing, in my opinion, pure gold. It does not get a lot of views. But I'm giving away everything, including the prompting. So I highly recommend if you want to try to implement this yourself, just watch this video and, implement what I'm talking about here. In short, it comes down to killer prompt engineering, creating the right kind of prompting, and setting up a virtual you on a platform such as Claude. Okay? What you're looking at here is virtual Chris. This was set up as a project in Claude. We primarily use Claude for most everything that we do here in terms of AI and SEO. It is really simple. So set up a project in Claude and then provide the project with instructions where you can see here on the left side. Tell it that, hey, you are a virtual copy of the real Chris Raulf. This is what you need to do. Be very specific. As you can see there at the top where it says memory, this thing is actually building memory because I interact with it hourly, right? It's a virtual copy of me that I use all day long. It's connected to my inbox, to my calendar, to all the things that I use online. So basically learns every hour. It learns more about me, what I do, etc. And then I created sources of truth documents. I call them roll-up documents, where after a sales call, I use Virtual Chris to summarize the sales call, and then I add it to the roll-up sales intelligence document. I usually consolidate that. I compact it once a month. But this is basically the brain of Virtual Chris. It has access to most of the conversations that I have. As you can see there, information that Daniel and I discuss, confidential leadership information, like all the things that you discuss with your team should go into that brain. With the help of Virtual Chris, I can then create content that will rank, I kid you not, within 24 to 48 hours. We're already running out of time, but Daniel will go through this methodology in a bit more detail. Once we have created the ultimate piece of content, we then deploy something that I call CMP CCOAD. It's also known as Generative Engine Optimization, where we deploy a contextual multi-platform content creation, optimization, and distribution effort, all with the help of AI. Daniel will explain that in a bit more detail. The underlying methodology is our Micro SEO methodology. We're about to launch our MicroSEO.ai website. In fact, I think we just put it up. It's going to be a SaaS model where you're going to be able to use this methodology to create content that, will hopefully rank in a relatively short amount of time. But that being said, Daniel, explain the method to the madness.
Yeah, for sure. So it all starts with that night that Chris was up all night thinking, how do we create content that's really going to work, right? And that's the methodology. That's the step by step of how we actually put together a piece of content that's going to rank. And for years, that's really our famous call that, that's what makes the work that we do really work is the quality of the content. But it all comes down to how do we use AI and how do we leverage AI? So any client that comes in, let's say that we're going to be working with Plumbers AB. Plumbers AB, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a custom agent for Plumbers AB, which you see in the middle of the screen. How do we feed information so this AI agent can learn and become a great agent for, the plumbers? Well, we're going to do some interview questions. If there's YouTube videos of the founders and the people involved, we're going to create transcripts and put it as part of the knowledge base. We're going to get podcasts, webinars, any other content generated. Once that initial piece of, once this batch of content is in there, we're going to work with the AI agent to create a lot of other questions that then we do interviews with the client, right? And we get these responses in form of a video, create transcripts and feed back into the agent. What happens is now we have an AI agent that's the opposite of what you get just working with Claude or ChatGPT, right? Which is just, the universal AI. It's an AI that really knows and thinks and talks like the owners of this plumbing company. That makes a huge difference. And then from there on the right, you'll see these are the documents that then we create and we use as a foundation for creating a lot of the pieces of content. We create an expert profile module. What is the EAT that these people bring to the table and why should, people care? This is important to be on every piece of content that we create. The business entity module, buyer personas, who are we talking to, and brand messaging guide. How do we talk to those people? So the first step and the most important step is really creating an AI agent, which takes us to the next step. Next slide, Chris. So this is not to overwhelm people, and I know I don't have a lot of time, but this is essentially the framework of how we create content that really ranks extremely well. So I'm going to walk through essentially starting from the left. Let's say that we're going to create a new piece of content, right? What we do is we are going to, first of all, the 4 documents on there are what we call the baseline documents, right? The expert profile module, the person who's writing this, usually the owner of the company. Why should Google take this person seriously, right? This is where we're going to highlight all of the EEAT that person brings to the table. The same with the business entity. How long has the company been around? Why should we trust this company? buyer personas and brand messaging guides, right? All of this stuff, when we create a final piece of content makes this piece of content not just be another piece of content on the website, but make a piece of content that's truly unique to the essence of the company that we're writing about, right? Then we create a strategy summary doc, right? The strategy summary doc is going to have a summary of everything that we want this piece of content to be. Why are we writing this piece of content? What problem are we trying to solve? What are the different things that we're going to do? Then the green boxes is where the magic really happens, right? Once we find out what are the top two, three keywords that we're going to go rank, that we're trying to rank for on this piece of content, we go in there and we do a SERP analysis. So we go to Google and let's say that, plumbers in Denver, that's going to be the keyword. We go to Google and we search for that keyword and we find out who are the top 10 websites that are ranking today for that keyword. We get all of those websites. Why? Because that's who Google deems the most important results, the most reliable companies. We do the same with AI overview. We do the same with Gemini. We go to Gemini, we search for that keyword. What is Gemini returning? We get that information. We do the same for Perplexity. We get all of that information. Why? Because by using a combination of all of these things that are working today for those keywords, in combination with everything new that we're going to bring to the table, our BSM Copilot system is going to put together an outline and a structure for a new piece of content that, based on all of this research, if written well, it's going to be better than any other piece of content that is out there, right? Talking about the things that it needs to talk about, touching on the different points, bringing the expertise to the table. And that's when we go in and at that point, we leverage the custom client, the custom AI for that customer. Why? Because now we go through a very detailed step-by-step process to process all of this information and create what you see on the right, a final piece of content, right? This piece of content, in our experience, ranks extremely well, right? That's the one reason that we have clients that stay with us for years, is because we're able to continue to create content that ranks better and better every time. Now, the other beautiful thing about this is the system now has this final piece of content. That's just the first step, right? The AI can now repurpose, slice, and dice this piece of content to create other assets that we can use in LinkedIn, in social media, in newsletters, Instagram, press releases, newsletters. There's all kinds of different things that we do. Now, here is where we talk about versions 1, 2, and 3, right? Version 1, when we created this about 2 to 3 years ago, every single one of these steps was done manually. It worked tremendously well, but it took us almost 2 months to put together a piece of content following this methodology. It was good because it worked really well and it ranked, but it was bad because it took a long time to create a piece of content. So in terms of a normal engagement, clients weren't getting pieces of content that were they weren't getting enough content moving forward. So then we went to phase two. So phase two, Chris, if you want to go to the next slide, is where we leveraged the AI agent to do a lot of this. So this, the same way that Chris showed, this is essentially the strategic partner that I use, right? It's our client, it's my specific agent. By leveraging this, we were able to automate things using AI instead of doing a lot of the manual work. So I would say that 50% of that work was then manual and 50% was using a copy and paste. And here's the thing, right? A lot of these AI agents, Claude, Chat GPT, they have a good system for you to build your AI agent like this, but they don't let you automate a lot of stuff, right? Because you have to copy and paste the prompts in there and back and forth. And that was version 2. So we were able to do that whole interface or that whole process that I outlined before. But now, by using these AI agents automations, we were able to get a piece of content out there in a lot smaller time, 7 days, 8 days, about a week. Now, what we are working on is the next slide, which is our new version 3.0. Chris, if you want to let me share my screen real quick, I'll kind of let people get an idea of what this system does.
Perfect. And keep in mind we got 6 minutes left.
This is going to be very quick.
Okay.
So Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. So what we're doing now is we're building an automation that brings that essential workflow that Chris created 2 to 3 years ago, and it automates. And the reason that we're doing this is because we're building a tool to allow our project managers to essentially become better and more optimized and do things faster. So here we go. So I'm just going to show you an example, right? And this is still in beta. But for example, this is one of our clients. And here's, for example, one of the pages that we created. So the first thing that you see is that, see right here on the right-hand side, we're building a custom AI agent using Claude, but instead of using the Claude interface, we're doing it inside this new system that we're building. Same thing. It's got the client memory, the instructions, all of the baseline documents that we're going to be feeding into here. But when we create a new piece of content, now we put in there, it leverages the baseline documents. It automatically does all of the keyword research for us. So it leverages what are the low-hanging fruit keywords that exist on the page today. What are other quick win keywords? What are other top keyword recommendations? And this allows the manager who's working on this to select, hey, we want to focus on these 3 or 4 keywords as the primary keywords. Then it automatically runs the AI and SERP analysis, right? So you can see for the Denver private chef, for example, which is one of the keywords, these are the top 10 results, and it brings all of that information in here. It does the same with AI overview, and it does the same with perplexity. Then once all of this information is brought in, it automatically creates the strategy document. Why are we doing this? What's the objective? And then it creates an outline of the piece of content. Again, all of this is happening automatically, but it allows our managers that are overseeing this process to go in there, tweak it, adjust it, talk to the AI, all right? Because this is AI, 90% AI focused, but the human interaction needs to be in there to make sure that we're moving this in the right direction. And then once all of this is done, it creates the final piece of content, right? And we have all kinds of different settings and abilities to create this piece of content. And you'll see the piece of content is in here. So what you saw that Chris invented 3 years ago that worked tremendously well, and it took us about a month and a half to 2 months to create a piece of content, and then manually doing it took us about a week. Now we can do it within a couple of hours, create a piece of content that not only it's extremely good because we're leveraging all of these things that we've learned over the years of what really works when using AI to generate content, but most importantly, it is a piece of content that allows humans to interact with it. So we're able to create a lot more and a lot less. So here's the thing. We're finishing this in our team members inside Boulder SEO marketing. We're going to start using this to create content so we can do more in less time, right? That's the big advantage for our clients. But then when we looked at this, we're like, wait a second, this is such an easy tool to use that now we've decided that once we get this to the point where it's easy enough to be used, this is a tool that we're going to make available to the public, where if you are interested in taking this to a test drive when this becomes publicly available, MicroSEO.ai is the website where we're going to launch this. And you'll see in here, if you scroll down, there's going to be a section. If you want to find out when this is going to be launched, we're going to launch it for a beta for a limited number of initial people to help us test the public version of it. If you're interested in taking this for a test run, submit your information in there, and then we'll let you know when this is available to the public. But for us, this is a game changer. This is essentially a system that allows us to not only automate, because automating things is easy, but automating the specific flow that we know works tremendously well, because this is something that we've been doing for several years now, tweaking and making sure that the content that it creates is exceptional and Google loves it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited about this, what we're doing here. exciting times, right? So yeah, if you're a marketer these days, you got to adapt, right? If this is something new to you, what you're seeing here, you are behind. I'm thrilled that I think we are advanced. So if you want to stay relevant, adapt, and take this very seriously. As Daniel mentioned, don't just rely on AI. You got to work hand in hand. You got to be the driver of AI, these systems. This is exactly what we're building with Micro SEO.ai. And I'm, super excited to hopefully showcasing the SaaS model in our next webinar. That's it. We are at the end of this presentation. Thank you so much for your interest. Smash that subscribe button if you want to stay informed about upcoming educational events. For those of you who still have a little bit of time, Daniel, we're happy to answer questions. But yeah, we're at the end of this presentation. I think we try to cover a lot of content. Hopefully, it was useful. If you would like to chat with us, reach out to us, just head over to boulderseomarketing.com. That being said, let me see if we have any questions here. And there's a slight delay. I'm looking at
And Chris,
the.
I was just going to say, ask John to put the MicroSEO.ai
Yeah, he
link
did. He
somewhere. Okay,
did.
perfect.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stop share the screen here so you can see the real Daniel and me. Let's see. Questions. Okay. Oh boy. The Fudged Lady, the replay will be available. Yeah, so sorry about the miscommunication, but you'll be able to watch the presentation on our YouTube channel. Um, Thank you for the nice comments. Wonderful, fantastic session. Thank you both. Excellent. Thank you. Are you using SE ranking for SEO data, and how did you import that into Claude? Daniel, do you want to talk about APIs in general? So we're using SE ranking, we're using multiple tools, Search Console, etc. So it's basically, I'll let Daniel talk about the connection.
Yeah. So most enterprise level tools have what they call API access. An API is essentially a little doorway that allows other systems to interact with and get information from. So the system that I showed you that we're building right now has API connections with a lot of different systems. SE ranking is one of them. So all of the keyword research part that you saw there, that comes from SE ranking. But then we're also connecting with Google Search Console API. And depending on the features and functionalities, for example, one of the things that we're creating for pieces of content is infographics. So infographics then connects with the Napkin AI API. So there's all kinds of different interactions that we have with different systems just through these API programmings.
Yeah, yeah. And basically, so what you've seen now, that's nothing, right? What we're working on, I think, is truly groundbreaking, where Daniel mentioned napkin.ai, where the system will eventually then auto-generate, infographics and whatnot that will be automatically included in the content. So that's what we're doing with these APIs, where I'm excited to do another webinar probably in the fall where we're going to showcase the final product and hopefully be able to launch that SaaS product. All right. Austin, hey, hey. What paid tools outside of SE ranking are you using, such as Ahrefs, Moz, SEMrush? SE ranking. That's the basically the only tool that like we're not even paying for it. They're giving us free access to it. That's why we like to promote them. They're very similar. All these tools are very similar. Obviously, they're all a little bit different, but SE ranking is the one that we use. Oh, Daniel, are we using any other paid tools? Like,
No, I mean, Claude is the only one that we pay for.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I think that's about it.
They all do the same stuff. I'm late. My calendar invite. Austin, don't worry. The replay will be available on the Boulder SEO Marketing YouTube channel. So make sure subscribe so you get a notification. Also, a like would be greatly appreciated. Let me see. Thank you. Very cool. I love what you guys are creating. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know it was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. Obviously, Daniel and I have been doing this for 30 years. I think we get it, and we're finally very excited again because things are different. SEO got a little bit boring, to be honest. So when ChatGPT launched, I'm like, wow, this is very cool. It's going to impact everything, obviously, not just AI, SEO. Um, but yeah, hopefully you learned something new if you're watching this online, not live. Hit that subscribe button. We publish a lot of, I think, really good educational content. Daniel, any last words, any words of wisdom?
No, and like Chris said, we're here. If you have any questions or need any help, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, and then I want to mention we created an AI department. I think we now have four full-time employees in that department. So we're, I guess, now a software development company. We're going to start to offer AI development deployment. We're at the very beginning. There's already a lot of interest in that. We don't have enough time right now in our days, but that's something that we're going to offer. That's something every company needs, right? Because you got to optimize everything that you do manually right now. It's critical that you're going to optimize that because your competition is doing it. So it's a matter of staying in business or not. Uh, that being said, thank you so much, everybody. Really love the comments. They're very encouraging. We'll keep you posted about the next webinar. Smash that subscribe button. And as always, stay safe and healthy. Chris Raulf here and Daniel Burns. And well, see you next time. Cool.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Bye. All right, I'm gonna end this. Thanks. Thanks, and good job. Bye.